Sahara Logistics published a clear strategy for its freight business: premium, reliable service. Yet, within a year of launching this initiative, their deliveries were slipping by a full day, and their two largest clients had forced them to renegotiate their contracts downward. The depot managers were not ignoring their directives. They were flawlessly executing the exact metrics their performance was judged on: vehicle utilization and cost per consignment. To meet those numbers, drivers simply held their trucks at the loading dock until every square inch of cargo space was filled. This points to a rigid organizational truth. There is an absolute separation between what leadership announces they want and what they actually measure on the ground. A corporate strategy is never the document housed on the company intranet. Strategy is exclusively what is resourced and what is measured. When employees are faced with a choice between a published mission statement and the metric that determines their annual bonus, they learn quickly which document is real. To prevent this exact misalignment, organizations rely on a specific mechanical linkage called the Cascade. The Cascade dictates that corporate alignment cannot be achieved through communication alone. If the localized measurement systems point in the wrong direction, the strategy will fail entirely. Before any execution occurs at the depot or the storefront, the organization must construct a sequential planning framework. The order of these operations is strict and non-negotiable. The architectural bedrock of this entire framework is environmental analysis. This requires an honest audit of reality. The organization maps the external threats it faces, like new competitors and the cost of capital, against its internal capabilities and available cash. Skipping this base layer and writing a corporate vision first produces an unanchored hallucination. It creates an aspiration built on untested assumptions, resulting in a plan the market will quickly reject. We can see how this data forces direction by looking at the Nashira Retail Group, a private fashion chain operating 14 stores in the UAE. When Nashira conducted their environmental analysis, the numbers presented a rigid set of constraints. They were facing 3 new international competitors entering their exact market. Simultaneously, their sales floor turnover had spiked to 41%, though their store managers averaged nearly a decade of deep experience. This specific combination of data eliminated options. Nashira did not have the capital to out-open the international entrants, and they could not fund a localized discount war. What they possessed was deep managerial expertise and a customer base that arrived informed. The data forced them to compete entirely on service quality and staff retention. That 41% turnover figure instantly became the numerical anchor that the entire performance system had to be pointed at. The strategic direction was dictated by market reality, not by an executive's aspiration. Only with those constraints mapped can you build the next years, a mission describing exactly who the company serves today, and a vision providing a verifiable, dated target for the future. These form the parameters for the final layers of the pillar. You establish the goals, the distinct outcomes you will achieve, and the strategies, which allocate the money and headcount needed to reach them. If you reverse this 5-step sequence or compress it to save time, the plan becomes unactionable before a single employee is asked to execute it. Once the pillar is built at the corporate level, that high-level goal must physically reach a frontline worker. This initiates link 1 of the Cascade, the organizational objective. Take the Marhaba Hospitality Group, a private hotel operator. Their overarching goal is to drive repeat guest revenue from 38% up to 55% by the end of the year. They explicitly rejected a simpler metric like total occupancy. Occupancy targets can be inflated by slashing room rates, which would actively contradict Marhaba's premium service strategy. This adheres to a strict rule of performance mechanics. If a target can be met without changing employee behavior, it will be. Link 2 is where the organization translates that target into unit objectives. An organizational goal must be mathematically fractured. If you hand the entire 55% target to every department, nobody owns a specific share of the mandate, leaving everyone free to blame another team for a miss. Instead, housekeeping is assigned the task of cutting room readiness failures at check-in to under 1.5 per 100. Food and beverage must raise the on-site dining rate to 35%. Front office must secure return bookings from 20% of departing guests. This enforces a critical constraint. A unit can only be measured on a metric it has the physical capability to influence. Front office staff cannot fix a room that wasn't ready upon arrival, and housekeeping staff are never in a position to ask a departing guest for a return booking. Fracturing the goal mathematically eliminates cross-departmental excuses. It forces precise, measurable accountability into the localized operations of the business. Translating these localized unit objectives down to an individual role is the single most frequent breaking point in the entire Cascade. A strategy that lives exclusively in a managerial slide deck exerts zero influence on daily operations. This brings us to link 3, the job description. The new unit objective must physically alter the legal accountability of the worker. A shift in strategy requires a physical rewrite of the expectations placed on the employee. For Marhaba's front office staff, this meant eliminating vague, catch-all phrasing like assists with other duties as required. That is the exact type of line that absorbs time and dilutes focus away from the strategy. In its place, the document received an explicit, measurable addition. The role now requires the employee to formally offer and record a return booking at departure for every guest staying 2 nights or more. Without changing this documentation, management has established no systemic authority to measure, reward, or penalize an employee for the new direction. The final link in the chain is the individual objective, assigned directly to a specific person, in this case, Tariq, a front office supervisor. Because the foundational data was accurate, the organizational goal fractured properly, and the job description was rewritten. Tariq's metric is hyper-specific. He must raise return bookings on his shift to 20% without increasing complaints. It is structurally sound and mathematically fair. You can run a practical, immediate test to determine if your own organization's strategic cascade is intact. It requires 1 sentence. Walk up to any frontline employee and ask them why their specific daily objective exists. If the employee replies, because it's on the performance form, a mechanical link has snapped somewhere in the layers above them. Accountability has defaulted to paperwork. But if that employee can explain that they hold their specific target because their department needs to hit a localized number, which in turn feeds the organization's overarching revenue goal, the cascade holds. Strategy is never the narrative leaders announce. It is the construction of this unbroken, measurable chain of constraints.